right. You're now listening to the Bloop and a Blast podcast with myself, Justin Casuccio, and my co-host, Luke Scott. And Luke, it's been a busy couple weeks for the both of us. I know you had some friends from back here in Ontario staying with you, socially distanced, of course. And you want to tell me a little bit about what you guys were doing? I saw a couple pictures of at some bluffs or in a nice mountainous scene. So how was that?
A mountainous scene. Yes, we saw some mountains. We did a lot of stuff outside because it was quite sunny and just really beautiful weather all around. You don't really get that this early into the spring in Van. Usually it's a little bit more rainy, a little bit colder, but we really lucked out. The cherry blossoms were in bloom and it was just a sight to see, honestly. Very beautiful part of the country. And yeah, we did a couple hikes. We rented some bikes, rented some mopeds. Trying to think what else we did. Little beach hopping, went around Stanley, played some basketball, played a little tennis, just stayed active, worked during the day, and then just met up and did a bunch of outdoor activities. So not to rub that in your face too much, because I know you probably haven't been doing too much of that yourself, but yeah, it was a good time for sure.
That's good stuff. I went up to Wasaga Beach last weekend. Just me, Molly, and Ralph, and we got some good relaxation time as the restrictions were being levied here in Ontario. But luckily, cooler heads prevailed there because there was definitely some weird stuff trying to be put in place with the cops stopping you at random. So that was interesting. But in terms of baseball, there's been a lot of interesting things going on the diamond too. And I just want to know what's caught your eye over the last couple of weeks or so, because I don't know about you, I've been watching a lot of baseball. It's been great just getting my mind off, obviously, the craziness of the times we're living in. And I know you've probably been busy with, hosting a couple of buddies of yours. But have you had any time to catch up on the action?
Yeah, I've been able to poke into a few games, mostly watching highlights rather than actually seeing an entire game end to end. It's very rare that I get that anyways, but for this past week, 2 weeks or so, I've been looking at more highlights on my feed, what's coming through on Sportsnet, Instagram, even scrolling, and I've seen a few headlines, a couple stories that piqued my interest. I think the most interesting one for me actually just happened. Maybe I'm biased because of being a Jays fan, but seeing Vladito there hit 3 home runs last night was pretty crazy. Vladito, yeah, I like that. It just comes out the tongue real nice. But
those placatas.
Yeah, yeah, he is heating up. His swing looks great, and the breakthrough is real. I believe it. I think he finally has figured it out. Took him a couple years, but it's a big weight off everyone's shoulders in the Blue Jays organization, seeing that he's the real deal for sure, and now he's just gonna develop and perform.
Did you see anything else? Coming.
Yeah, a long time coming.
But definitely glad to see that. Glad to see that. I've just been watching a lot of Jays. I pretty much obviously catch every game. Yesterday's game was obviously a highlight. Today's game was a little bit more frustrating.
Mm-hmm.
And Springer made his season debut today, went 0 for 4, but that's to be expected. I think he's going to have to shake off a bit of rust here before he really gets going. What I wanted to touch on, first of all, was just something in the immediate aftermath of what I just watched. And that was the atrocious balls and strikes call that really cost Steven Matz what was otherwise, he was settling into a maybe not a quality start, but he was definitely having a better time before he was absolutely robbed on a strike 3 call. It was basically 2 inches off right down the middle of the plate. And I don't know who was umpiring the game, but really cost him there because it was a 1-out walk. And then Trey Turner came up and just, smacked a single. Next thing you know, after a little bloop, then there comes the blast, I see what you did John there. Axford, I think. John Axford was replacing Joe Siddle in the in between the inning segments. Mm-hmm. And he was just talking about, you got bloop and the blast kills you. And it's so true. And I think that we got robbed today from that umpiring mishap, but probably weren't going to win the game anyways. But I have a question for you, and that's if we have this technology for robot umpiring, and I know we've heard it for years. If we have the technology, why don't we have challenges for balls and strikes calls?
I think the speed of the game is a concern. We already have challenges for replay. To add challenges for balls and strike might slow the game down more than it already is. And the MLB, for the most part, seems to be wanting to speed up the game wherever it possibly can, putting in rules such as looking at relief pitching and making a minimum 3 batters, for example. I think that anything that's going to slow the game down is going to come up with a lot of objection from the MLB, even as much as players maybe might want to have balls and strikes just called correctly. And then there's also the side part, which is the less discussed, but also sort of elephant in the room when it comes to baseball, is that it's never been done before. And it's just against the classic tradition of what baseball and the authority for people who have power in baseball, i.e. the decision makers, the rule makers, etc. They're just not going to want to make switches like that you're taking out that human element of an umpire. So I think it's a bit of a combination of both there, slowing the game down and just MLB being resistant to change.
So my response to that, though, is, does it slow the game down in tennis when you have immediately the data or the technology that shows you, yes, that was in the strike zone? Why can't we bypass the authority of these umpires and just say, no, you just got it wrong. We're using our challenge. That electronic strike zone says that it's a strike. Now we're going to go with the strike and we're going to move on, and we don't have to waste a second.
Yeah, it wouldn't slow it down that much, but it would slow down maybe 5 seconds every challenge. And having a rule around how many proper challenges you can have in a game. I think baseball is something where the officiating, i.e. the referee, umpire, etc., it's different in baseball where there's a lot more respect involved. And that's where you sort of see umpires having the ability to throw people out of games, and you see, fierce confrontations that you just don't see in tennis. Whereas a machine could almost be showing up an umpire, and umpires, from my own experience and from what I've seen, tend to have their own egos as well. And they're not wanting to get shown up in front of fans of 50,000 people. So whenever you have a sport where managers are challenging, players are challenging, and there's such ticky-tack around the strike zone constantly and constant conflict there, just throwing in more technology to solve the problem isn't going to alleviate the umpire's ego. Because I think that at the end of the day, that's what's going to come into play. And the MLB, for some reason, seems to be siding with the umpires always. It's the human element. They like the umpires. They want the umpires. It's part of the game. Let's side with the umpires. So I think that's why, as long as there's umpires who have sway and pull and the MLB is favoring them, they're never going to put that on there because it's just going to make these guys' egos feel bad.
Well, the fragility of their egos aside, I think it would really help to improve the game. There's been a lot of things that we could mention. I've just been going over different divisional opponents for the Jays, thinking about the hot start Boston's obviously had and the cool start that the Yankees have had. And I'm just wondering what your thoughts are as to if you think the Yankees will finish ahead of the Red Sox. From what I've seen, I think that the Red Sox are surprising a lot of teams. And your take in episode 1, where you said that the Red Sox rotation was actually not going to be a liability as much as I thought it was, is holding up so far. So I think that the wheels on the hype train will probably fall off pretty quickly. I think that they're probably a slightly above 500 team. But I wanted to get your take on the Red Sox hot start. And do you think that it's just a case of they've got Devers, JD, and Bogarts just smashing, and then obviously Verdugo's contributing too? Or what do you think of that situation there?
Yeah, I've always been of the mind that their pitching staff was not getting the credit it deserved to start the year. And I think especially once Sale comes back, you have a verified ace to anchor the staff. They're going to be a team that if you're playing them near the end of the year and they're playing spoiler, I wouldn't want to be going up against them, just knowing the bats they have, the average that they hit for, the ballpark they play in. You never know when you go into Fenway what's going to happen. I think that Boston as a team will always command respect that way. So how they finish the end of the year, I think as well, above 500 team. I think they may challenge for a wild card spot, but I do believe ultimately the Yankees are a better team. They're having a slow start. I have a tough time seeing the Yankees still not winning the division, but from what they've shown so far and how the Jays have played against them, the Jays could definitely beat the Yankees in a series. So it's actually comforting to think that where, in the playoffs, if the Jays come to down to it to play against the Yankees, I like our chances, just how they match up so far. I still think Yankees are better than the Red Sox, though.
Yeah, it is comforting, like you said. And I was just thinking about that before the show, too, how nobody in the American League scares me right now the way that I thought they would. If you look at, Minnesota, I think they're 8-15 or 8-12, something like that. It's been a really rough go for them. You look at the White Sox, Lucas Giolito is not really pitching like the ace that we thought he would be, at least to this point. And everybody's got question marks. I mean, Tampa's got question marks. There's just, out west, you look at the Angels, they're a 500 team. The Astros, I know they had some COVID issues, but they're below 500. And so Seattle, the Magic's running out in Seattle a little bit. Kansas City is coming back to earth. And it's just, nobody scares me like, probably like I thought they would. And the Jays are looking, they're sitting pretty right now, I think, with their guys coming back. And things are just definitely looking up for the Jays. And I do want to get into more of a Jays talk with you later on in the show, because I think that there's just a lot to touch on there. And obviously they're an exciting team. So we're going to get more to them. But just to round out the AL East, I just had one point to make about Tampa because I'm growing to hate the Tampa Bay Rays. And I really think that they're just the most boring franchise. I really hate watching them. I hate that Tropicana dump that they play. I want that team out of there. I want them in Montreal. I want that cross-Canada rivalry. And, look, I was watching a game the other day at Tropicana Field, sorry. And they got different ground rules for the catwalks, for Christ's sake. Like, we don't even have ground rules that are applicable to the rest of the major leagues. I don't know how. It's astonishing to me that place actually got a green light to host major league games, because it's just a joke, in my opinion. But I just wanted to get that off my chest before we moved away from the AL East, because Tampa, aside from Randy Arozarena, who I'm obviously a big fan of, Brandon Lau, he's a nice story, but man, it's streaky as hell, that guy. And really, aside from them, I have no interest in that team. I don't know about you.
Well, they do churn out good pitching. I think that's the one thing you can never take away from the Rays. They make the most out of what they got, but it's sad because it's almost a situation where the owners are milking the team and they don't want to spend too much money to be good. So they'll put in as little as they possibly can in order to lose as possibly the least amount of money as they possibly can, if not make some. So it's a weird strategy where instead of a team playing to win, they're just playing not to lose too much money, which is strange as an organization. As a pro sports franchise, I don't think that's really what you want for the competitiveness and quality of the game, but they are innovative. You look at really pioneering the shift, pioneering the starter, right? Like the Rays have made a lot of adjustments. Whether or not it's made the games better, it's to be seen. I personally am not a fan of the shift. I'm not really a fan of the starter, but hey, they're doing these things. And every time the Rays seem to lead the charge in trying something new, it's catching on across the league. So as much as I don't like watching their games, I still have to respect the people and not necessarily the organization as a whole in terms of its management, but the baseball minds that exist inside, who are working as, the managers, the farm team system, the AA teams, AAA teams. Do you know what the AAA team is? It's
they're the Durham Bulls, aren't they? Or is it
Durham Bulls?
AA?
Exactly. Yeah, I think they're AAA. Or maybe they're double. I think they're triple. But their farm system's great. They develop good arms, and then it's almost like they're the AAA team to the Yankees and the Red Sox and the Dodgers of the world, where that's just what happens. They create good players, and then those other teams snipe them off their roster because they don't want to pay them. So hey, you need all ends of the food chain and the ecosystem, and the Rays are just small fish. So. Take what you get.
And one last point on them. I just saw that Patino the young player they just got from the Padres.
Mm-hmm.
He's actually the first player in Rays history who's actually younger than the franchise. He was born in October of 1999, and
Nice.
they became a franchise in '98 as the Devil Rays. So,
Damn.
that'll round out our little discussion there on the AL East. Luke, do you want to get into the nap time segment? Because I don't think we've gone back to this since we introduced it in episode 1.
Yeah, I really like this segment. I think that from a standpoint of fantasy players, there are definite sleepers. There is situations where guys are just sort of pooping their pants on the bench there that I don't have the guts to start. One of those guys being Patrick Corbin that you brought up last week. Another guy who crossed my radar now recently, just pitching wise, Kyle Hendricks hasn't been great to start the year. I think it has something to do with the ball, where he's great at inducing contact, but now with the contact rate being a lot higher in terms of exit velocity, pitching to contact pitchers are struggling, where strikeout pitchers are seeing a bit more of a benefit. So I think that there's a couple guys out there right now that pitching wise, I just wouldn't start. Those are two of them just because they're on my radar at the moment. But hitting wise, all of the Atlanta Braves have been really quiet to get going. It looks like the bats are finally going because, I mean, they blew up Kyle Hendricks for 7 runs, 2 starts in a row, I think now. But if you look around from, Ozzie Albies to Dansby Swanson's starting to hit now. He was really, really quiet to get the year going. Even Freeman was quiet. It was pretty surprising.
Too.
What's
Ozuna
that?
too.
Ozuna's been, I think he had something like 4 strikeouts or something in one of the last games I watched. A lot of swing and miss stuff in his game right now. But that was a big surprise for me. So I would put in the whole sleeping section, the whole Braves team. But it looks like they're waking from their slumber now in the last couple games. So we'll see where that goes. In terms of guys who are sleepers and I'm trying to target right now, who I'd like to probably pick up, anyone who has upside for speed. As I'm just noticing, this year it's always been hard to find speed, but this year it's been almost next to impossible. So even guys like Yerkes and Profar right now, who contributing lightly across the board, but you still got 4 steals. That's better than a guy who's barreling up the ball even 30% more often right now. I'd say for a guy who's at the end of your roster, kind of a fringe bench player. So steals are
Yep.
I'm on the hunt for them right now currently. So if you know anyone, throw them my way. But any guy who's taking those bags, Isaiah Kiner-Falefa, I think he's another guy. Catcher eligibility in Yahoo leagues. He's got 4 steals as well. A guy who has 4 steals, but I'm actually not really big on right now is Andrew Benintendi. I don't know. I think he's losing a bit of the magic. He seems to be on the decline. But yeah, I'll round it out with that. And I kind of want to hear your sleepers and who you think are sleeping right now on your bench.
Well, I'm going to start off with a surprise, and that's Mike Trout, because he's definitely not a sleeper.
I would say not.
He's statistically having a better month of April than he's ever had. He's actually having the best month of baseball that he's ever had in his career statistically. Mm-hmm. And just because he's performing above our astronomical expectations, I think that's just an incredible thing. And he's got a .539 on base percentage. He and Ohtani are just carrying that Angels team. And I mean, it could be a lot worse for them with how little those other role players are actually doing for that team. Like besides Jared Walsh, and I mean, even David Fletcher's, I guess, sort of one of the better players. But
he's so meh.
Bad too.
He's just the definition of meh. That guy.
Yeah, he's meh. I mean, he hits those Texas League bullshit singles that just piss you off when you're watching as a fan of the other team. But yeah, the Angels, I don't know. It's time for Joe Adele to come up. That's what I think. But I mean, he hasn't really helped his own cause just from the way he's performed when they have given him an opportunity. But yeah, the Angels, I mean, it kind of breaks my heart as a baseball fan that the Angels, I just don't think that I'm as excited about them as I was 2 weeks ago. And especially on the pitching side, I mean, Alex Cobb, like Jose Quintana, these guys are not getting you to the promised land. I'm sorry. And it was tragic when they lost Tyler Skaggs. I mean, he randomly came up on my YouTube and I just watched him pitch a game the other day just because I remembered, how cool he was. And then they had that amazing moment where they went out and threw the combined no-hitter for him. That was a really touching moment. But really since then, we've been waiting on this Angels team, and I just don't see any signs of life out of anyone other than Shohei Ohtani and Mike Trout. And I mean, it has been very, very fun to watch both of those two. And I mean, Ohtani might be in MVP consideration if he can just get up to, let's say, 10 to 12 wins and puts up 30 home runs. I think he has to be the MVP. But is that enough for them to squeak in? It might be, because the AL West looks pretty bad.
Yeah,
I mean,
it does.
It looks really bad right now. And what are your thoughts about the Angels, and what are your thoughts about that division? Do you think they can take the pennant there, or the division title?
At the beginning of the year, I definitely thought they could. I think Houston's obviously going to be their biggest competition. Still think they have a decent shot when you have Trout and you have Ohtani, who surprisingly is way better than I thought he was going to be anyways this year. I think maybe just touching on him a little bit, his pitching has been better than what I assumed it would be. I thought for batting, okay, he's probably going to hit 25 to 30 homers this year. He's obviously very hot right now. I think he's going to cool off, but still also, stolen 3 bags, looks good on the base pass. The guy can run, man. He's a big boy and he can move. That's one part of his game I did not think was just how fast he was. But this guy's an athlete all around in all parts. He's like, forget 5-tool player. This guy's like a 7-tool player. I don't even know. He can do it all. And, exciting times for him, because again, I think the breakout is real, like it is with Vladdy. So I want to watch him play. I will watch a game just to watch Shohei play if he's pitching. Best would be if he's pitching and hitting. So my thought is, like, he's got to go to an NL team. Why is an NL team not traded for this guy yet? He's so much more worthwhile in your league. Why would you not want him? Because now all of a sudden you get an extra. You can bat him 4th. Every other pitcher is batting 9th. He'd be the only pitcher batting 4th in an NL game. So I think obviously if I'm the Angels, I'm not giving him up, but just super exciting to watch. Very fun time for baseball. They need a guy like this to sort of get some energy going.
Yeah, they needed that.
So for baseball, I think I hope the Angels make the playoffs, and I still think if they make the playoffs, Houston is going to be a wild card. Their bats are too good to be asleep for too long. COVID sort of slowed them down a little bit, but we're going to see the Astros turn it on, and I just hope the Angels can keep up the pace.
Yep. And another guy that's been slowed down by COVID that I wanted to touch on in this naptime segment is Michael Kopech, who is just dealing for those Chicago White Sox. He's getting 47% swinging strike rate right now against opposing hitters. Nobody can touch his running fastball. I think he actually has a bit of rise on that fastball, where it's actually having some upward trajectory, about upwards to 2 inches, which is just incredibly difficult to hit. And this is a guy I kind of felt a little bad for because he had some bad timing with his arm troubles, his Tommy John in 2019. It kind of overlapped to last season when kind of everything got shut down. So he basically lost 2 full seasons to a Tommy John, where you normally would only lose 1. And I mean, it might be a little bit of karma for leaving his pregnant girlfriend, but that's a start. Oh,
you had to bring that up, huh? Not getting by Justin.
We might have to edit that part out, but you know what? Nobody said we were PG-13 on this.
You can bring it up. You can bring that up. That's fine.
You got to bring some of the controversy, right?
Yeah, I thought you were going to bring up Reese McGuire next, too. I don't know. Speaking of which, what is up with Danny Jansen? Get rid of this guy. Oh my god.
Can we get into this catching situation?
Because, we can at the end. Let's wave it for the end.
Oh
but yeah.
Man, this is like therapy for me right now, Luke, with this catching situation, because man, I know I've just been going on about this, and I'll probably talk about it till the cows come home. But neither of these guys are worthy of being an everyday catcher right now. And God love Alejandro Kirk. But
God love him.
Like Danny Jansen, I mean, this guy was the 5th best prospect. I actually Googled him the other day, and he came up as an old article from 2017. Danny Jansen, 5th best catching prospect in baseball.
Yeah.
And all he's done since being promoted is fucking a whole lot of nothing. He's just literally not been able to make any solid contact into any gaps. I mean, every time he scorches the ball, it's right at a fucking guy. And I just have no idea. I mean, I was watching a game with my dad 2 years ago, and it was actually just, I don't know, it was a random game, and I saw Danny Jansen playing. It was a big situation, and he did disappoint. I mean, he had a really bad strikeout where he just looked atrocious. And I said to my dad, like, that's not a major league swing. Like, that looks like somebody who's never even swung a bat before. I mean, the mechanics were terrible. And I mean, I feel bad for the guy because he is a really nice guy from what I've heard. And he does great stuff for the community and all that good stuff. But I mean, seriously, .49 batting average? Are you kidding me here?
Forget about the Mendoza line. That I don't even know what that's called.
We need to create a new Mendoza line called the Jansen line, where you got to hit above 100.
Yeah. You got to hit above 50.
And you know, I got Jansen in my blood, so that's not a thing that I'm proud of. But it's been tough.
Put some respect on that name, Danny.
Yeah.
Tough sledding for him. Well, I mean, hey, I hope he turns it around for his sake and for the Jays. But it's been dicey to get the year started and just quite frustrating. So, anyways, let's keep it moving. What segment do you want to hop into next?
Well, I thought we could just talk about. We could either talk about the gas station. We can get right into the gas station because I got my 3 pitchers. I don't know about you. Or we could just shoot the shit. Just keep talking about. I've got actually a few more other guys to mention here, so I'll just do it quickly. Josh Bell's been really sleeping on you. Before we wrap up that segment, 109 batting average, and that's another guy, Luke, that I was saying.
He was going high. He was going high.
I don't know if you remember a couple years ago when Alex had him. He was I was trying to tell him, oh, he's such a shit hitter. Don't take this guy. And then obviously he went off for the Pirates. And Alex was rubbing it in my face the whole year. And now it's just like, yeah, this is Josh Bell. This is who we thought he was. He sucks. He's hardly making contact with the ball.
He had probably 3 good months that year anyways. Like he went off and his stats for the year were not bad because those first 3 or 4 months, whatever it was, were really, really good. And then the other couple months were really, really bad. And he's stayed really, really bad since then. So
yeah, for sure. Sure. Okay. So do you want to lead it off at the gas station or do you want me to?
You can go ahead. I already mentioned some gas cans off the top, so I'll leave that segment out of mine, and I'll let you go ahead first, and we'll go from.
I'm actually going to start with the gas can for a change because
interesting.
I feel like that's probably the most interesting part of the segment, anyways.
Yeah.
And my gas can is Zach Davies, and as you mentioned, it's these guys who pitch to contact that are just getting shellacked right now. Zach Davies has been a nightmare trade already for the Cubs, this Yu Darvish trade, and they're just getting killed by their fans. I mean, you give away a Cy Young caliber pitcher for this. I mean, Zach Davies, one of his biggest strengths is that he can go deep into games. Well, in 6 starts, he hasn't even gone through the 7th inning and thrown for a quality start one time. On April 10th, he got just crushed by the Pittsburgh Pirates without Kid Brian Hayes for 7 runs over 1 2/3. And so he's just been awful. And I like Zach Davies. I mean, he's a guy that, he's probably going to give you a south of 4, north of 3 ERA, somewhere in that range. But this year, definitely it's just been a different start for him. Hopefully he turns it around. Maybe he will. But for now, he's definitely in that gas can category. Yeah. So I'm going to let you give your gas can actually right now because I'm running out of breath.
Well, yeah, I already mentioned Kyle Hendricks off the top. I think that he will regress more towards the mean a bit in terms of his talent level, but at the same time, he's a pitch to contact pitcher. I think that they're going to get hit exceptionally hard this year. So probably not as valuable as he has been in past, but currently has been a gas can because whenever you see a guy going, one game, 0 earned runs, and the next game he's giving up 7, and then the next game he's giving up 0, and the next game he's giving up 7 again, how do you start that guy with any confidence? I don't know what version of this guy am I going to get this year. And that a lot of times, if you're looking from a fantasy perspective, that's why you're drafting Kyle Hendricks is for his consistency. And now he's all over the place, right? So yeah, he's definitely a gas can. And I think with pitchers, it has a lot to do with trust. It's a real trust relationship, and they can lose your trust real quick. Where I don't even want this guy on my team anymore because I don't trust him, and so I don't want to have to be thinking about matchups and picking this, picking that. So that's been frustrating, but I think that there's a lot of upside on the pitchers this year. A lot of surprises. You mentioned Lucas Giolito. I'd say not that he's a gas can per se, but he's just not living up to the hype that we all thought that he was going to have coming into this. So true, he's still got 33 strikeouts for the year. He's got 11.1 K9, but really, I think he's got a negative WAR. His WAR is like negative 0.3 right now. So really not great. I mean, when you have a guy of Lucas Giolito's pedigree and what everyone thinks about him, and he's got a negative WAR, that's not a great look for him right now. So to go into, I kind of want to touch more on the mid-grade guy, and that one who now seems to lock down a spot with the Dodgers rotation is Dustin May. He was lights out. That's one of the games actually I did catch was when he was pitching, and he was on. This guy was throwing an easy 98. Easy. It looked like he was just stepping towards home and letting his arm do the work, letting his legs sort of just go free, and he was throwing 98 with tailing action on the ball. And he's young, and the fact that he's their fifth starter in LA is just scary. I think he'd be arguably one of the Jays' best pitchers, just to give that comparison. Yeah. And the fact he's their fifth starter and had to fight for that spot and was coming out of the bullpen a lot of the time. They're a scary team. What's that?
His slider's a frisbee too.
The movement on it is nuts. So he's my mid-grade. I skipped over a little bit of the gas can, even though touched on Hendricks again, but over to you for your I guess your mid-grade, or where you're going with that.
Yeah. Okay. So my mid-grade this week is Danny Duffy for the Kansas City Royals. And, I've never really had much of an opinion about Danny Duffy. I never really thought he was too good, but he is keeping the ball in the zone and he's keeping the ball in the yard. And that's a great combination, especially when you're playing in a big park like Kauffman Stadium. He does have a lot of, obviously, historical evidence that's going to point to a quick regression, I think. But for now, you can't really ask for much more from a guy than you're getting from Danny Duffy. And, you could probably put Brady Singer in that category too. So maybe I'll combine the two of those Kansas City starters in my mid-grade this week. Because I just think, why not? They've gotten off to the hottest start of anyone in the American League, and it's not saying too much. But for now, those two guys in Kansas City are holding it down, and they're my mid-grade pitchers. In terms of my premium pitcher, it is Trevor Rogers from the Miami Marlins. And I will admit that I did not know Trevor Rogers before this season started, which is just crazy because what a talent he is. And even before the season, I was talking about, the Marlins, how good their rotation is with Alcantara and Pablo Lopez and Sixto and even Eliezer Hernandez when he comes back. But you just slot in an ace at the top like Trevor Rogers. That's going to be a really, really dangerous rotation. If they could just ever get any offense going, that would be a really scary team. It's just kind of sad, really, when you just watch a Marlins game. It's like their offense is pathetic, man. Past Jazz Chisholm and, the occasional Corey Dickerson 3-for-4 game. It's just really a really bad team to watch right now. It's just a bad mix of offensive players over there. But
Jazz is also hurt now too. He's hitting the IL. I think Jazz is hurt as well. He's going on the IL.
Yeah, he's hurt now too. So it's just, it's unfortunate. But getting back to Trevor Rogers, he's in great company in terms of just some metrics. I think he's just behind Jacob deGrom and Corbin Burns in terms of obviously ERA, FIP, two very important statistics for pitchers. And he has 38 strikeouts over 28 innings. So Trevor Rogers really getting it done.
Nice. Yeah, I like that. I like Trevor Rogers. I picked him up in one of the other leagues I'm in, and he's been really great. I've heard of his name. You mentioned you didn't know him. I heard of him, didn't know too much about him, but heard good things. Lucky that I got him on the squad because he looks like was almost a certified ace. Almost. Not quite. He hasn't quite proved himself. The trust level isn't there, but definitely with the potential to be an ace and just a weapon to go along the arsenal that Miami is lining up right now. So yeah, some scary stuff going on out there, especially pitching in a pitcher's park like Miami's park is shaping up to be. But still, not really going to watch their games. They're just not a team I'm trying to watch. If I see Miami, I'm going to avoid it. I don't care who they're playing, aside from maybe the Dodgers or the Padres, which are probably my two favorite teams to watch right now. I steer clear of the Marlins. I'm not interested. But to go over to my premium pitcher right now, there's a couple. Actually, I want to bring up two guys' names. And the stat, I'm going to bring up WAR again. So tied for the league lead in WAR right now, two guys you probably don't think are John Gray and John Means. So the two Johns, they're leading the league in WAR. They're tied with Jacob deGrom with a 1.5 WAR. So
I had no idea that John Gray was doing that well.
Yeah, he's got a 2.54 ERA. He's 3-1, 28 innings pitched, 18 hits given up, but also 27 Ks to go along with a respectable 8.6 K per nine. His whip's only 1.09 as well. So he's looking good. John Means, 1.5 ERA, 2 wins, 30 innings pitched, only 5 earned runs. The one thing about him there is given up 3 home runs. So of all of his earned runs given up, only 2 of them have not been off home runs. And that's not even saying that there was, actually, I believe one of them was a 2-run shot. So he's only given up 1 run, I believe, that was not a home run, which is pretty great to start the year, especially when you're tied with Jacob deGrom. But there is a third guy who also has a WAR of 1.5, and I think you know him pretty well. Pitched for Cincinnati the other night in LA. Do you know who that is?
Sonny Gray?
No. Starts with a T.
Oh, Tyler Mahle. Yeah, Tyler Mahle. Fucking lights out, yeah. Yeah,
it's 1.75 ERA. He's got a 12.6 K per nine, which is up there in the league. Not quite Jacob deGrom level at 15.2, but 12.6 and a whip under 1. He's looking nice this year. So that whole group of guys, they're not your traditional, I'd say, premium arms, but they're pitching like it to start the year. Do you want to switch over to maybe Jay's talk just to wrap up and go over some of your hot takes there?
Yeah, so let's go back over to the Jays. Now, we already talked about the catching situation. Another thing I do kind of want to gripe about, obviously, is the defense. The defense has been terrible. And I'm not going to go too much into the Bo Bichette thing because I do like Bo. I think that he's a professional already in terms of just being around the game for as long as he has with his dad. Mm-hmm. I'm not worried that he's got the yips. I'm not worried that he's not going to figure it out. But I do think that he's not really that good at shortstop right now, and that's a problem. So
not really that good.
What's the solution?
So
you move him off short. I don't think the solution is to move him off short because you're creating problems when you move players around, and we saw that with Cavan Biggio. Moving him to third was a big mistake. Yeah, and I still don't think they've fully realized that.
Scott Kingery too.
But what do you think about the infield defense so far? What do you think about that infield defense?
Obviously not good. They need to shore up third base. It's kind of a bit of what do you call this? A bit of a collage. It's a bit paper mache, sort of just stick and paste wherever they can at the moment. I don't know. I think unless you bring someone in who can lock down the third base or just lock down a position, it's kind of a slap in the face to a young developing player just to move him off that position. I think if you bring in someone who's a veteran who they can learn from and can groom, then I kind of like that move. But just punishing a young guy after making a lot of mistakes, who is probably one of the brightest lights in the future of your franchise, I don't really agree with that. I think you need to be patient with those guys, even if it costs you in game here and there on the early on, because as you mentioned, he's a professional. He's going to get better, but patience and time is going to be needed. So for the infield, I think Vlad actually, when on first, has been pretty passable. I got no concerns with him there. I just don't think Biggio's a third baseman, and I'm not convinced Bichette is a second. I feel like they're both second basemen personally, but they're just getting put in positions right now that they're not fully equipped to deal with. So either they just deal with it and hopefully get better over time, or they try to bring a strategy where they're getting maybe an older guy to come in and sort of mentor someone at third or short. I'd probably see third replace first, but you mentioned how bad Bichette's been, so maybe it's a shortstop. they need, and whether you throw Simeon over there could be an option. I don't know. Where's your head at with them? Do you think a trade solves things? Do you think they just got to bench guys?
Well, no, I think it's an easy solution, Luke. I really do. I've been saying this to anyone who will listen. I think Simeon needs to play third. I think you need to keep Bo at short and let him have his growing pains. And I think Biggio needs to go back to second. And Vladdy's doing a great job at first. I was actually really getting on my nerves earlier this season when I heard Joe Siddle talking about how he misplayed a stretch at first where he stretched out as far as he could. Yeah. Biggio took him off the bag. You remember that play? It was one of the first few games of the year. Yeah. And then after Joe Siddle made that take, which, I mean, Joe's a pretty negative guy. I don't really like his takes in between innings, but after he made that take, everybody ran with it on the post-game show, and everyone was saying, oh, he needs to be better with his stretching, and he needs to stay on the bag.
He's got to do yoga.
Taken off the bag.
Make him do yoga.
It's just terrible, some of the takes I hear from those guys. But anyway, back to it's a simple solution. You get Simeon at third, you get Biggio at second, Bo stays at short, and then Vladdy's man in first base. And then Lourdes Gurriel, I think he might need the Hakeem optical super lens because he doesn't know how to track any fly balls right now. It's been pretty rough watching him try to take routes to the ball. So if he can just get that under control and maybe get the stick going a little more, I see he hit his first home run tonight. So a step in the right direction. And then obviously you got Springer. That's obviously going to help everything. Teoscar and Grichuk can, I guess whoever's hot can play right or DH. And then I think Rowdy's an afterthought. And that's how I see things playing out. Yeah. So, is that kind of how – and also I wanted to get your take on the batting order. Like, my ideal batting order would be Simeon leading off. I think he's a table setter. I don't really think Biggio, as good as his on-base skills are, is a table setter. So I would have Simeon leading off, Simeon, Bo, Springer, Vladdy. Then I'd go Teoscar, Grichuk, Lourdes, and then probably Biggio and Jansen or whoever's catching. How about you?
I don't mind Springer in the leadoff spot, to be honest. I think I remember seeing some stats. I would have looked this up earlier had I known we were going to talk on it. But I think his average and his on-base percentage in each slot in the order first, second, third, I think first ended up being one of the, if not the best slotting for him just over time, over his career. Not to say that that's going to be that way 100% with the Jays. But if I could have my way, I like that Biggio walks a lot. I don't know. I'm not a huge fan. I'd probably bat him lower in the order, but then when you bat him 6, it's not really very useful to get him on base for the 7th, 8th, 9th hitters. So you almost need to put him up top. Because that's just where his value is. Like who's gonna? It's not that necessarily. I don't think Simeon would be a better hitter, but I could see him doing more damage in the 6th position because he's going to drive guys in, and he's also going to be able to get on base. Where his skills, when I'm referring to Biggio, is very much just getting on base. So you kind of got to put him in the best position to succeed, and that's at the top of the order. That being said, probably bat him first. You could see Simeon bat second. Vladdy, are you set on Vladdy in the cleanup spot? I kind of don't mind him third. I don't know. I wouldn't mind him
third either. I don't mind him third either, but and I don't mind Springer leading off either. But I just think Springer's got a little more power, and why not have your best hitter hit third? That's traditionally been the way it's been. I mean, having your best hitter lead off to me is a mistake because all those leadoff home runs, they're solo shots. So I don't know. There's different philosophies. Mine is have your best hitter hit third, have your most powerful hitter hit fourth. But there's a bunch of different combinations. It's fun to think about the different things they could do. They could have Teoscar hitting cleanup. There's Lourdes heats up, he could lead off, or I don't know. It's just a bunch of different possibilities, and it's a fun food for thought there.
Yeah. I think they got a flexible lineup there. I would probably still bat Lourdes in the bottom third, but we'll see. Maybe he does heat up and he starts getting it going, and maybe that Hakeem optical true eye vision works out for him, because I've heard your eyes can have it all with Hakeem optical. So
your eyes can have
Oh, thank you. Wow, I didn't know it was a music podcast as well, but we got a little show.
We can transition to a bunch of different things. We're multi-talented here.
Mhm.
I have one more question in terms of the Jays.
Yeah.
And that is the manager, Charlie Montoyo. Do you like Montoyo? I'm not a big fan. I think he's a little bit too analytically driven. I think that he doesn't really understand situational hitting. And to get back to Jansen, the biggest thing that frustrates me about Jansen is that he's unable or unwilling to bunt. And I mean, if you're going to be as bad as he's been, you got to run, you got to advance those runners. You got to play small ball a little bit. And I don't think they ever have any priority to do that. So that really kind of gets on my nerves. I don't know if you see it the same way.
Yeah, I'm lukewarm on Charlie. I like his accent. I like listening to him talk. I find he's a fun guy to listen to. I don't know. He's honestly more fun listening to than half the Jays announcers sometimes. Anyways, seriously. We'll leave those guys off the burn pile for now. But I don't mind him. He is analytically inclined. I think I'm more analytically inclined. So I'd probably side with him on a lot of his decisions. But to go off Danny Jansen, I don't know. I don't want to rip on the guy again, but yeah, he's got to learn how to bunt. Learn how to hit or learn how to bunt. One of the two. You're a professional.
We're not going back there.
Yeah, one of the two. Just do one of the two.
We're not going back to the Danny.
Yeah. Anyways, yeah. Let's.
You know what? I think we got to put that in because it's therapy. But you know what? If we dwell on it, it's just going to make us angry.
Yeah.
Because
a lot of negative
there's
energy.
Nothing to say.
Yeah, exactly.
He sucks, man. He fucking sucks.
Yes, sir. You said it. I didn't. Yeah. Great guy, though. Yeah. Great guy.
Great guy. I mean, I know nothing about him, but all I hear is he's a great guy because there's nothing to say about his production. So I got to say something. I do like that he lived with Adam Jones. That was a cool story that he housed Adam Jones in the minors there. His parents were a situation in Wisconsin. What was the team? I think it was the same team that Big Poppy came up on up there. I don't know, in Madison or one of those random towns in Wisconsin.
Mm-hmm.
And so I thought that was a nice little story there. But I think Danny Jansen's got a little bit too much run time on the pod tonight. But you know what? You're either going to be really good and get a lot of good press, or you're going to be bad and you're going to get the bad stuff. So he's gotten in our dog house here.
He's living in your head rent free right now.
He is.
Yeah. Just don't let it keep you up at night. But with that, I think it's been a good episode. Going to probably, I don't know, make myself a tea, put my feet up, record a baseball game. I was working, so I missed the Jays. Maybe I'll toss that on. You already mentioned some guys, gave some spoilers, but you know what? Might watch it anyways. So
it's been an interesting Bloop and a blast. I've had a Bloop and a blast. I even got into singing the Hakeem Optical theme song.
Yeah, there you go.
That was definitely an interesting soundbite that I think will live in infamy in the Bloop and a Blast podcast.
Yep.
So with that being said, I've had a Bloop and a blast. Luke, have you had a Bloop and a blast?
I sure have.
I know that this is something we like to do at the end of the show. We like to ensure everybody's had their good time there. And with that, I'm going to say have a good night and take care, everybody.